Can I get everybody's attention? I think many of you know Monk Silouan. He is here to give us a presentation on Orthodoxy in Africa. So, and if his technicians here can figure out how to get it up here, we'll be good to go. So, but Father Silouan wants to talk for a few minutes first anyway, so I'm going to turn it over to him.
Good morning. Master bless. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. About a year ago, I started a ministry, or I was looking at a bunch of missions on Facebook from Africa where people were always asking for money. And I didn't have much money to give to anybody. And I was also concerned because I didn't know who was legitimate and who wasn't. And I always had a heart to really help people, but I didn't want to give any of my money to people that weren't doing what they were saying they were doing. So I identified a mission that another missionary had said was working, doing what they were supposed to be doing. And so it inspired me. It was like, okay, so what can I do for missions? You know, I probably can't spend all my time overseas. You know, I'm in a monastery. So I started really thinking and praying. It's like, okay, what can I do? Because everybody is called to participate in missions in one way or the other. You know, in Matthew 25, Christ at the Last Judgment asked us, did we feed the hungry? Did we clothe the naked? You know, this is things that all of us are called to do. Christ doesn't ask us, did you keep the fast? You know, this is all stuff that we do to help us serve other people. So when looking at Africa, I was like, okay, what do I have as an American that the Africans don't? And the answer for me was internet access. A lot of them don't have internet access, so they can't, the people that are really on the ground doing the work of evangelization and serving the orphans, clothing the naked, have very little opportunity to tell their story to everybody else who has so much. So I started putting together a group of volunteers. I've got a web designer, an iconographer, and then we've got Andrea here, who is our second volunteer. And we started putting together a team that includes Metropolitan Jonah now on our board. And so we decided we were going to put together, figure out who was legitimate and who wasn't, and then go around the country and raise funds for them and let people know their story. We started out based on basically Facebook, just telling people, okay, this is the story, this is what's going on. So we put together this team, and then I got invited out to Kenya this last summer to start telling the story of the African missions all over the world. I visited 8 countries on 3 continents and 6 states, talking to people about Orthodox Africa this last summer. And I was able to go to a bunch of the missions in Kenya. I visited 4, 3 of them are still with us. And I really realized that the biggest problem we have in Africa today is because of the colonization, whether it was the UK, Germany, Belgium, that there's a real dependency issue where the Africans are really used to just being fed by people from other countries. And they're used to hand-me-outs. And so I realized that as a mission, we had to be able to not continue this cycle of dependency. That we had to help facilitate ways in which these missions could become self-sustaining. And so, talking to them, we've started developing business plans, and we're working on that with my team right now, so that eventually, the idea is every mission that we support is going to be self-sustaining, producing enough income to feed the orphans and continue to spread the faith in whatever area that they're in. So far, I've been asked to go to Uganda now and all over Kenya. The need is overwhelming. But right now, we've got 3 missions we're all in southern Africa, down around Nairobi. We've got 2 orphanages in the Kinangop area, and then 1 that's working in the Kibera slums, which once we get the PowerPoint up, we'll have some pictures of that. The Kibera slums it's one of the largest slums in the world and the largest in Africa. It's about 2 million people crammed into a 3 square mile area. And it's the equivalent of people living in a dump here. There's about 40 actual toilets, outhouses for 2 million people. And there's no running water anywhere. So raw sewage runs through the streets everywhere. It was not uncommon to see kids picking through the trash, looking for their meals. So a lot of what we were doing was the orphanages that we were working with is rescuing people from this. Africa is very tribal. And so every time the politicians or the government changes, there's riots and a lot of people end up getting killed. And Kibera slums is where all the minority tribes are pushed out of Nairobi and the nicer areas. So one of the things we're really working on, we've got elections coming up in 18 months. So we're working on building a orphanage out in Western Kenya to rescue as many kids from the riots that happen around election time, because a lot of them end up dying. The only place in Kibera where they're safe is there's St. George Orthodox Church there, and they've got a compound. And that's the one place in Kibera that doesn't get burned during the riots. And so hundreds of people come and just sleep all over the ground. And so all the other churches get burned. It's just the Orthodox Church that becomes the savior for as many people as possible there. It's all down in this area. We're all south. About 150 miles from Tanzania. And while we're raising funds we started the ministry where people could just make direct donations to the individual orphanages. They told the story, they had their PayPal accounts. There's absolutely no middlemen, and you could just make direct donations. And that worked for a while. And then until we realized that we needed to really build the projects so that people could become self-sustaining, and I wouldn't have to see priests ever again begging for money, and that they would be so busy evangelizing that they wouldn't have time to get on Facebook. This is the St. George, or a little bit of information about the St. George parish that I was talking about in Kibera slums. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. While I was there, we had about 60 baptisms for new converts, and I picked up 22 godchildren. This is one of my youngest ones, Spiridon, being baptized in the Kibera slums. And one of the things that's very special about the ministry that we've got is that even though Africa is very segregated by tribes, everybody is coming together in the Orthodox Church. And it's overriding all the tribalism, the ethnic clashes that they normally would have. So Father Agapios here has got people there's 42 distinct tribes in Kenya. None of them really like each other all that much. But there's almost all of them are represented within the Orthodox Church today and coming together. Go ahead and switch. This is your average alley between the shacks. And that's raw sewage running through. And they just kind of set up grills over it. There's to cook their dinners. It's you can't really explain it unless you've been there. But it's all sorts of cardboard shacks, mud shacks. They don't have any actual electric hookups. They've got a lot of illegal stuff with exposed wires all over the place. So half the slums burn down, every other week. So they're constantly starting over again. And then there's a lot of metal siding, not so much in this picture, but every time it rains, because of the illegal electric hookups, they get electrified and people slip in the sewage and try to catch themselves and end up getting electrocuted. And it's just a very, very bleak existence. But the church is really growing. We've really offered hope to people. The other two missions, we've got St. Barnabas and St. Irene's, and they're a little outside, about 30 miles outside of Nairobi. And they're also working with orphans. They've got a combined about 20 orphans right now. They're still trying to grow, but they also offer elementary education, and that's how they're working on supporting themselves. So along with offering the elementary education, they're offering catechisms, and we're seeing a lot of kids converting. St. Barnabas in particular there is no Orthodox secondary school yet. So we're trying to raise funds to build a secondary school because we're getting a lot of kids that they're converting, and then we have to pass them out. And secondary school is about high school, middle school to high school age. It's 7th grade and on. And so we're trying to build that so we can continue to nurture people in the Orthodox faith as they go on. We don't have all the business plans finalized yet. That's still kind of in committee. But they're trying to do the secondary school and get paying students from the families that can afford it and to pass the money off to support the orphans that they have. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is Father Methodius and Father Konstantinos Eliud at a baptism where we did 30 kids while I was there. And this is their mission. This is the church. It's also the library, school library, main classroom. They set up the altar in the back there, and then you can kind of see. They're fancy. They've actually got a concrete floor that you can barely see in the picture. But the idea, the priests are spending all their time just raising money as much as they can, and they don't have time to really do the catechisms and stuff like that because they're just trying to take care of kids. So that's where we came in. We're like, okay, we'll do the fundraising. You guys take care of the catechism. You take care of evangelizing people. And so that's what I'm here for today. The kids in Kibera made a bunch of bracelets and stuff that we'll have here to, here's a bunch of the kids in Kibera. There was about 230 of them that swarmed at every orphanage. And we were supposed to have a video.
His goodness of Father Silouan. They say that they are going to light your goodness in their heart and they will preach it. Stephanos. You're stealing.
If you're happy and you know, say Jesus. Jesus! If you're happy and you know, say Jesus. Jesus! If you're happy and you know, and you really want to show, if you're happy and you know, say Jesus. Jesus! If you're happy and you know, stamp your feet. 1, 2. If you're happy and you know, stamp your feet. 1, 2. If you're happy and you know, and you really want to show, if you're happy and you know. If you're happy and you know, nod your head. 1, 2. If you're happy and you know, nod
The
your
main thing
head.
that we were working on with identifying these parishes, these missions that were really doing what they were supposed to be doing, is transparency and accountability on all ends. So I've been verifying, and I've got the committee that is looking at all the finances, all the donations, and making sure that every penny goes directly to helping the kids. And so that's where I came in, just going in, and I inspected everything. I made sure that all the kids were being taken care of. Every penny was going to buying whatever the donors required. Like we had a donor while I was there send money for shoes. I think he sent $300. And so, taking that money and just going directly to the shoe store. And I don't know that I have pictures of that, but we had kids that just had rags wrapped around their feet. And we took them all to the shoe store and bought them new shoes with that. And it was about $20 a piece. And it just lit up their whole world. And then the next day they all showed up wearing their rags again. And we're like, what's going on here? And they didn't want to get their new shoes dirty. They just wanted it. They're like, oh, this is so nice. We couldn't possibly get them dirty. So it was interesting. The main thing I just really realized is just how much we have. I never realized before going here and going to different hotels. I got back to a hotel in Qatar, and I walked into the hotel room and I saw a real toilet. And I was like, whoa, whoever knew that you could be excited to see a real toilet? And that's just the type of poverty that the people are living with. And it really changed my whole perspective on life because I had so much. You know, looking at my car payment, for example. I mean, all I could see is, okay, how many kids could I feed with the money that I'm spending on my car or any of this stuff? So really, the whole idea of this mission was to build a synergy where we could bring people together. And even if you can't go overseas, if you can't directly work with these kids, even if you get on Facebook for 5 minutes and share our post, it's offered a way for people around the world to be able to participate in missions and to answer the call of Christ. You know, did you clothe the naked? Did you feed the hungry? And so there was a Pravoslavy article that I did, an interview, and you can still find it online. But the whole idea was everybody needs to get involved. You know, we don't have a choice. This is what Christ asked us to do. And this is how we live the Christian life. So how can you do that? Not everybody has money. Not everybody has the freedom to go overseas. But everybody can spread the word. You know, you can pray for these missions, even if you can't give money. And in this way, sorry, it's hard for me to even think about it. You know, this is how we just participate in everything. Does anybody have any specific questions? Yes?
You said they have a PayPal account, but what else do they have? Do they have any other way for people to give money securely?
Yes, you can wire money via Western Union. We outgrew the first website that we had, so we're currently rebuilding it right now. Everything blew up. It just took off. While I was there, I was summoned to meet with every bishop there in Kenya, which is all 3 of them. I was just amazed by how this all worked out. Right now we've got about a little over a dozen volunteers working full-time on trying to develop grants, business plans. We outgrew the website. You know, I ended up in Kenya. I had no idea that I'd ever go there. And now they're wanting me back. But I guess I'm just mostly here to encourage everybody to get involved, whatever that is. Yes?
What's the relationship between the churches in Kenya and the Alexandrian Patriarchate?
All the canonical churches in Africa are under the Alexandrian Patriarchate. And in Kenya, they're under Archbishop Makarios, Bishop Neophytus, and Bishop Athanasius. And they're all patriarchal bishops. So.
Bishop Neophytus.
Neophytus, I already got it. Is there any other questions? Yes?
Again, about money. Have you ever tried to do a GoFundMe, or is that...
GoFundMe takes a lot of the fees. We've looked at the different crowdsourcing stuff. We've really tried to keep it minimal. And the main thing that I wanted with accountability was to have as few people touching the money as possible. You know, we're all volunteer. There's nobody getting any money anywhere. And so, yeah, GoFundMe just takes a lot of fees right off the top. So we're working on incorporating right now. We're doing the paperwork to set up a 501c3. And this is all stuff that I did not see coming at all. It's just kind of all developed on me. And, you know, I've become the public face of a ministry that's literally thousands of people around the world. Russia, Ukraine, here, all the volunteers behind the scenes. And we're all working together to offer what little we can. You know, I think about almost all of our volunteers have a lot of health problems, and, you know, most of us aren't very capable of anything, but it's been amazing watching how God uses the least capable to do the most. As long as we just give ourselves to doing whatever it is that we can. We're going to pass a basket around here, and we'll also pass some bracelets around that for any donations that you may give to the missions and building the business. Well, the bracelets will be here on the table. The orphans in Kibera made that as a thank you for your donations today, and just to remind you to pray for them. And that brings up one of the main things that I really want to leave you guys with, if nothing else, that we are one body in Christ. These are all of our brothers and sisters, and there's just, I can't even articulate the love that they have for us and that, I have for them, but we are one body. We're all connected. And so, this is like our left arm that is suffering right now. But please take the bracelets. We're asking for like a $10 donation for the bracelets, and just, remember to pray for us. Pray for the ministry. Pray for the church in Kenya. Juliana, you had a question?
Yes. How do you handle medical situations in Kenya?
The question was, how do we handle medical situations in Kenya? We are actually working on, the government does have some hospitals. The Coptic Church set up a very nice hospital. We're working on bringing medical teams in eventually. We're working on bringing medical teams together, hopefully. The St. George actually has a clinic that's staffed for basic stuff, antibiotics, basic care. They're hoping to get an OBGYN out there full-time because a lot of women are dying in childbirth. It's almost a daily occurrence. So that's one of the things that we're targeting. Hopefully down the road we'll be able to help furnish a medical clinic, but right now we're really focused on getting the self-sustainment going and generating income. Oh, we got I was a volunteer, the second person to join our team. So Andrea would like to say something to you.
Glory be to Jesus Christ. All right, I'm very glad you allowed us to be here today, and I want to say thank you to Father Silouan for his hard work. He has been running himself into the ground. Lydia Jonah's been very good about helping us stay on track lately too. So thank you everybody here for hosting us, number one. I just kind of wanted to come in from a layperson's perspective here. When I started working with Father Silouan about this, we really didn't know what we were getting into. This is not what we expected to happen, and God completely took the reins on this. We took the time to talk to one another and keep the lines open and learn to be a team. And we grew a lot. We don't have any overhead is covered by the volunteers. Every single penny that we raise goes directly to the orphanages. And one thing that's important to remember is what Father was talking about is that the priests, 3 priests, and their matushkas, they spend so much time just raising money. If you can imagine if your local parish priest or your local bishop, if all you did was raise money and they didn't have much time to do anything else, they work themselves into the ground. These kids have very little, even basic sustenance from day to day. So right now, a lot of the time, they're just trying to get the basic needs met. Food, clothing, and shelter. Needing rent is a very hard multi-month thing for a lot of these people. They're trying to get out of the city so that they're in safe areas, and they're doing everything they can. Fundraising from their own pages, they work with us constantly. And they give of their own substance. Anything that the priests give, they give out directly to the orphans after taking care of their own families. And you will see some of these priests going hungry along with the children. And it's really, really sad to see. So I just wanted this to say that all these plans for the secondary schools, all these plans for medical clinics, everything's a basic need first. It's even hard just to think about doing these amazing, wonderful things that we have the opportunity to do if if the children who are going to be going to schools can't eat in the first place, because you can't learn if you don't eat. And none of this is to we don't want to manipulate you. We do not want to guilt you into giving. We want everything that you are led to give to come directly from God. So we just want to present the facts to you today that these are real people. They have real stories, and they are really, really eager and hungry for Orthodoxy. They're eager to serve, and the priests just they work themselves into the ground for hours and hours every day with these children. So please, if you have any questions, if you have any further, if you want to see more pictures, Father took, how many pictures did you take? 9,000 pictures while you were there. He was there for almost a month, and there are a lot. And I got the blessing, such an amazing blessing, for like less than 5 minutes to talk to one of the priests and several of the children one day via webcam, and that was a treat, because they don't really have much technology in place to do something like that. So when I talked to them for the first time, my heart just completely broke. These are precious, precious children, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting and listening to us today. Thank you very much.
As I said earlier, the website we're rebuilding it completely. We outgrew everything. So it's orthodoxafrica.org. Just tell a neat story. The logo here, that was designed off of my goddaughter, one of my goddaughters. Just put her hand on mine, and you can kind of see that that's not her, but that's a different one. That's Sophia. And her house, or shack such as it is. Her parents died of HIV, and she's being raised by her 16-year-old aunt, who is also HIV positive. She's 5 years old. I can go back to that. But anyways, with the logo, it was just really to demonstrate that we are one body. Different colors, different ethnic backgrounds, but we're all one in Christ. Well, they're all under the Alexandrian Patriarchate. Eventually, we would like to work with the churches in Uganda, and I've got a lot of requests, but we need to really see some success. We can't spread ourselves so thin that we don't see anything, accomplish anything. So right now we're working with the free missions. We've got a bunch of other missions that are ready to go, and they want our help. So what we're hoping to do is get the one school set up, or in Kibera, they want to build a cyber cafe because not everybody has internet access. So they figure if they can get 15 computers together in a room and charge people 100 shillings an hour to come and just get on the internet, that they can support their orphanage and feed the orphans, build a place out west. And so this is what we're focusing on right now. It's like, okay, how are you guys going to support yourselves? And they're bringing the plans. We're very sensitive to not being the Americans telling people what to do or how to do it. I was going for Kibera, and I was watching how there was an NGO that came in and taught these women how to build or sew these beautiful dresses and purses and stuff like that. And you're like, well, great. They taught them a skill. This is how you get people out of poverty. You give them a way that they can raise money and support themselves. But the problem is we taught them how to build something that nobody could afford. So now they've got this great skill. They can build and sew some beautiful dresses, but there's nobody there that can afford them. So they're sitting on their hands waiting for tourists to come around that can actually afford these things. So we've been very intent on making sure that anything business plan we develop is going to be needed by local people. Local people will want it, they'll need it, and they'll be able to afford it. So that's, I've been as hands off as possible with this. I've gone to the priests and I said, okay, what works for Kenya? What do the Kenyans want? We're here to support you. We're not here to build the church, but we're here to back up the people who are actually building the church and who are doing that work on the ground. So it's not about any one of us. It's just about joining hands with the people that are actually on the ground and saying, okay, how can we help you? So,
What is the economy based on? Is it agrarian primarily? Is it agricultural? As to how can the poverty be addressed? Is it because of lack of education or famine or all of the above?
it's tribalism. I mean, as I said, there's 42 distinct tribes. The Kikuyas are the majority tribe, and they push everybody out into that's not Kikuya, and that's the Kibera slums. It's the Sudanese refugees, Luas, Luyas, all the other tribes. Africa's a very rich country, but foreigners own all of the major resources, and the government is absolutely corrupt. I mean, we would get pulled over we had brand new tires on the car, and we had the cops pull us over and say, your tires are worn out, trying to shake us down. And you go around Nairobi and you see signs saying, oh, this building's a corruption-free zone. They've got Boko Haram coming in from Somalia. So every store you go into, you're getting patted down, going through metal detectors. They've got what we go through at the airport, you go through going into the grocery store there. So it's just a huge combination. There's also the fact that I think it was 1956, if I recall correctly, that they finally got their independence from Britain. And Tanzania was colonized by Germany, and so they're still recovering from bad attitudes that were developed during World War II between Britain and Germany. So it's just a huge combination. There has been a drought. There's not any one real answer. And I kept trying to get them. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And they've gone to war more than once trying to get their resources back from the foreigners that own them. And it just hasn't worked. Whoever they get in government continues to control everything. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
It sounds like a perpetual problem.
Absolutely. And that's what we're trying to break. Because it has been, as one of the priests told me, white man feed black man. And he's like, black man's perfectly capable of feeding himself. But there's been so many years of the otherwise. So, yes.
Okay, I wanted to say a couple things first. Father Silouan got me involved in all this, and I think it's a really solid thing. It's working with and through the church, so that it's not supporting kind of fringe organizations. These are verified institutions that can be trusted, that where the money is not being used for anything. There was one, and after he visited they decided that this group needed to be let go, shall we say, because they didn't approve of how the money was being used. Didn't want it associated with Orthodox Africa. So this is a very solid approach, I think, to raising funds for these communities. The need is immense, and I think Father Silouan will be is certainly available to answer any questions that you have, maybe individually, since it's getting late already. And so, if there's anything else, there's a basket. It's sitting on this table for those who contributed. There are the bracelets. There's still another basket over here. It needs to get circulated around. So thank you very much for your attention. God bless you. God bless your work. And there'll be any further any further questions or issues, talk to Father Silouan. Do visit the website, orthodoxafrica.org, and it will be it'll be something I think that you will find a very gratifying way of supporting something where there's a profound need. God bless you.
Well, thank you all for your hospitality. I really appreciate it. And the orphans really appreciate it. You know, they're getting updates on everything. They're following everything that we do with immense attention. So, yeah, I'll be around if anybody else has any individual questions.